Welcome back to episode 2 of Disrupting the Algorithm podcast season 2. That's right, we're on our second season of Disrupting the Algorithm. My name is Julio Salgado, and I am the co creator of the Disruptors Fellowship, a program of the Center for Cultural Power. And as you know by now, our Disruptors Fellowship application is back for 2026. We're so excited. We took a hiatus last year, so we're really excited to bring it back. A little different structure, but we're back nonetheless. In the last episode, we mentioned the new structure for 2026, and this includes the Writers Room Experience and free monthly TV writing workshops beginning next month with Zachary Stevens, who will be back with their outline workshop. In the past, you have to be part of the mentorship program, but this year it's open for anyone who is interested in, learning more about the craft. And we ask you to please, please, please commit to at least four of the five workshops. So that will begin in June. You don't have to be in LA for the workshops, but you do still have to be in LA to be part of the mentorship program. So don't forget to apply for the mentorship program if you're in LA area, and if you're outside of the LA area, make sure to sign up for monthly free workshops when the RSVP link drops on May 11. Make sure to check out our IG at Disruptors Fellowship or artistdisruptor.org to know more about this year's program. So by the time you're watching this, the RSVP is probably out. So make sure you apply and sign up for the RSVP. All right, on to our guest. Today we have just an amazing person, an
Aw.
OG from day one. Yes, that's right. It is my pleasure to introduce today's guest, Kryzz Gautier, friend.
Hello. I'm so happy to be back in the Disruptors world and family because like you said, we go way back. I was part of year one, peak pandemic. We didn't meet each other in person for a few years. We might be heading into a second pandemic, so look at us, full circle.
No, I really hope we don't. We like right before we got on, we were talking about, as of recording today, this hentai. What is it called? The
The
Hanti virus?
hantavirus, yeah.
The Hanti virus.
Hunty is with us.
Listen, I really hope that it doesn't happen, but there is some kind of triggering, like triggers. It's like,
Yeah.
oh my God. What would that look like again? So the memes are killing me.
Truly, truly. It's bringing me back to when we met and to when Disruptor started. So at least that was a good thing that happened during the pandemic. I became, some of these people that I met have become some my closest friends, and I'm very happy to be back in the circle for sure.
I'm so happy to hear. I love it when, people just say how disruptors have brought them together and they've gone on to collaborate or just, become besties. But Chris, before I get into the questions, I want to give you your flowers
Oh
and
my
just
God.
tell folks all the things, all the amazing things that you have done and who you are. For those of you who don't know, and you should know, Chris is a queer Afro-Latina writer, director, producer, and author born and raised in the Dominican Republic. As the only child of a disabled mother, Chris spent most of her formative years entertaining herself, which developed her permanent ESL for creating complex worlds filled with three-dimensional characters. Chris' accomplishments include writing for HBO's critically lauded series Gordita Chronicles and working as a writer, creative consultant for the upcoming installment of 2K Games' celebrated video game franchise BioShock. Did I say that correct?
BioShock 4.
Okay, there
Yeah.
we go.
Very close.
She has developed with or sold projects to studios like Sony, Universal, Stage 13, and Film Form 4, among others. A number of her projects have been distributed by HBO Max, Hulu, and Dust. Her award-winning work has gained international acclaim with her film screening at numerous Academy Award, BAFTA, and Canadian Screen Awards, qualifying festivals like Fantasia, Outfest, Urban Word, and Frameline. Her short film, Keep the Lead, love it, won the HBO Warner Brothers Discovery Short Film Competition. Chris has been on four. let's just say that again, for Blacklist and has the only script in Blacklist history to be on three separate lists. Kryzz was also part of for this first Disruptors Fellowship back in 2020. And today, she's here to tell us what she's been up to and drop some knowledge because Kryzz is that girl. I needed to tell you all the things about Kryzz. I will always, always tell my friends about my friends. So thank you for being here
It,
today, Chris.
yeah, I mean, looking back to where I was thinking about, the period of Disruptors, I had just sold my first show, I believe, coming into Disruptors, but a lot of those things that have happened, that you mentioned have happened since Disruptors, and I think a big part of that, for example, Keep Delete was the pilot that we developed during the program, and the short film that I went on to do, and that went on to premiere at HBO and win all these things and screen in like 70 plus festivals was with the actor that I met during our reading, which was Wilder. So there was a lot of synergy and a lot of things that came out of sort of disruptors and everything that happened with Keep Delete here.
Yeah, and listen, I don't know, I always see disruptors and even my role as like sort of like the party host, like, let's bring people together and you never know, right? What could happen. I always tell folks, disruptors is whatever you make of it. And
Absolutely.
it's beautiful to see some of those, those plants from those seeds that we put out, a couple of years ago. I want to kick off our conversation, Chris, by asking you,
Yeah.
what is an example of creative disruptions that you have witnessed on TV, film, or any other kind of media that is keeping you inspired during times of upheaval, which those times started
The
to happen.
upheaval is upon us.
It is upon, it's been
Um,
on us.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I think as of very recently, me and some people that I love and respect dearly that have a lot more experience in the industry than I do have come together to disrupt the streaming studio industry in our own way. I don't know how much I can say yet, but we have seen where everything is going and the projects that keep being greenlit and the people that are working. I mean, if we look at the statistics, there's less female directors than there were 10 years ago. There's hardly ever queer or Latino representation on screen anymore. So I'm coming together with a group of people who have decided that the industry is not on track with where we want it to be, and we're kind of creating our own path and creating our own table since people aren't giving us our seat at the table as we think we deserve. So I think that creative disruptor is seeing people take what the major conglomerates and the people coming together are doing and being dissatisfied by it. And we're being like, okay, well, let's go this way and let's pivot. And how do we reinvigorate the industry? And how do we give people that we think we deserve opportunities, more opportunities? So I think we're going back to basics and we're doing things ourselves and we're starting our own table.
Listen, I think I don't know, and it's also the immigrant mentality in us. Like I'm like,
Yeah,
oh,
absolutely.
like we're like learn from the immigrants, learn from us. Like we
Yeah.
make magic out of nothing. Not to say that that's like ideal, but I'm like, I don't know. For me, as I'm looking at people kind of feeling desperate, I'm like, I don't know. I'm used to it,
Yeah.
unfortunately, and we've made it work.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Like I think you're right. I think, building your own thing. Yes, it would be great if we could get some. There was a time, even Disruptors, kind of started during a time when there was like all this like support for the community.
Right. I remember the slogan was, I think, like 50-50 by 2020 when we did it at the time. And that was like kind of what we were pushing for. And now it's like we get less female directors, less female leads. I was at a panel last night that Variety hosted called A Night in the Writer's Room. And it was
Mhm.
like a comedy panel, a limited series panel, and a drama panel. So I think it was like 18 to 20 different showrunners between the three panels. There was one woman of color in the entire like spread of showrunners. And when I look at what the shows were, I believe only two of them had women of color as leads, and one of them is Euphoria. Like Sam Levinson was there. So we know how well Rue is treated in that show and how great the representation is. So I don't know that that counts. But that's where the industry is right now, is you get into a room and it's one person of color and then 19 white people. So I think I'm tired of waiting for a seat at the table. We should just create our own table.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the or our approaches this year for the program was like, listen, the needs of 2020 are still this, if not
If
more,
not worse,
if
yeah.
not worse. But, as a program, we definitely wanted to pivot to like, add more folks to the community of creatives because I think that's one of the biggest things that, people get out of this as we start talking about, the beginning, like the community that you build, right?
Right.
You were part of, our first Disruptors in 2020. I'm
Yeah.
wondering, if what are your thoughts on our new structure of having a mock TV writers room, which we've never done before. I know there's other fellowships that have done similar things, but we at
Yeah.
Disruptors haven't, done that before. And this free monthly workshops. I'm wondering what as an alumni, what are your thoughts?
I think it's a priceless experience to have. A lot of us who have gone into our first room, as much as we hear about it and it's a collaborative experience, and until these things like you don't know until you experience, like until you're there and you see how an episode is broken and you get notes and there's note cards everywhere and episode breakdowns and this and that. So I think it's a pretty valuable experience to have. I now that I think about it, I sort of equating it to I've shadowed on TV shows. Like I was on the Ryan Murphy program and done all these different things. I did the NBC program. Um, so I think, we can be directors all we want, and we can direct short films and we can direct features, both of which I've done, but a TV set is so different. And the director relationship on a TV show is so different that I think getting that experience is invaluable. So I think being able to be in a mock writer's room and seeing what a day-to-day in a writer's room actually looks like will be something that I think people will take for the rest of their careers.
Yeah, and I think it's important to, because one of the things that again that I'm like thinking about, I'm like, what are as we're talking about the way that this industry is shifting, right? Like, how are we sending folks a little more prepared into,
Right.
this world? Because people are still, and I'm really hyped about our mentors, which I call, mentor slash showrunners, for this version of Disruptors. Is that exactly what you're saying, Chris, right? Like a lot of them, they're like, we didn't know about these things until we were in the actual
Yeah.
room. And so, the this with through this experience, it's just how do you ask questions? How do you, all those things that you kind of had to learn the hard way. But what was the first show, the room that you joined right after Disruptors?
It was Gordita Chronicles.
Gordita Chronicles,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
and so I'm wondering, did you take, what were some of the learnings from Disruptors that you took into that first room?
I think it was a lot of how to um it's a really humbling experience when you go into your first room as a staff writer. I mean, some people sell a show and they get co-showrunner right away. But typically you go in as a staff writer and you're the least experienced person in the room. So coming from Disruptors and having been surrounded by so many talented people, but getting feedback from everyone and getting to like sort of nurture each other during that process, I think it was knowing how to take a note and knowing how to like listen and having worked with the mentors during the disruptors period as well, it was like, what can I learn from all these writers who have been doing it for years around me? I mean, there were people in their 60s or whatever in my room, and I was in my 20s still. So, or no, I was not in my 20s. I'm making myself younger than I was. No, that was wrong. But yeah, I think it was learning, like being a sponge and learning as much as you can because these people have been doing it for years and they come, from the era of television. We only had, I believe, 8 or 10 episodes, and I was working with people who come from like the era of 24 episodes, and seeing how fast they work and how fast they can pitch a joke and how fast they can write a script because that's what they had to do for a really long time. I think was like a really nurturing experience.
As a first time, staff writer, what was is there a thing that you can, give an advice to someone who was like, what is that first thing? I hear often about like people who like don't listen and they just pitch, 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 pitch. And listening being an important, part of the process. What is the one?
Yeah.
I hear that word like it was a humbling experience. What was like a thing that you were like, if I would have known this, what is the thing that you would tell somebody else or first time Chris?
I will say this. Sometimes it's a lot of politics.
Mm,
I think a room is a lot of
mhm.
politics, and you might genuinely believe that you have the best idea, and that might be the case. People will remind you that you're the staff writer in the room very quickly. So know your place.
Mhm.
Remember where you are in the hierarchy because it is a hierarchy. And yes, you might have the best idea in the room if it came from the staff writer. It happened to me more than once and love these people, whatever. I would say something, it would get shut down. 2 hours later, someone way higher up than me in the hierarchy would say something with like, three different words, and they'd be like, brilliant. That's what we're doing. And you're like, oh, okay, I see how it is. So be prepared to have those moments where you understand just how much of it is politics and how much of it is um, understanding that who an idea comes from is also going to play a lot into how it's received.
Yeah, true. And then on the other side of that too, right? Like I've also heard of experiences where those senior writers like are open and saying like, let's listen to that person who's got an idea, right? Like I've heard of situations like that as well that it could happen, right? Like so I think
Yeah.
finding your ally in that room is important,
Yes.
right? Okay, well now you're again just a person with, multi-talented director, writer, you go between TV, film, and video games, which I need to ask you more about what exactly is. I have no idea about the world of video games, but I know they're extremely popular. Can you like which format are you most comfortable in creatively?
Here's the thing. I think,
Pick your baby. It's like pick your favorite child.
yeah, I think they satisfy different parts of me and my creative process. If you made me pick, if we live, 15 years ago when TV shows were getting like there were 600 shows in the air and you could get your pick and blah blah blah. I think I long to tell long stories, no pun intended. I write 4 season shows and I know exactly what each season is going to be and I want to live with these characters because I do come from the One Tree Hills and the Smallvilles and the whatever of the world. You got 24 episodes, 10 seasons, and I love those characters and I grew up with them and to this day are some of the people that I like remember the most fondly. Um, but that's not a thing that happens anymore. And I think because I want to be able to tell a complete story,
Mhm.
I have pivoted to features a little more because I get to be like, this is the thing. It's not, I'm going to leave you on the season one cliffhanger when I wanted you to see the whole 4 season arc that this character was going to go on. So if I got my choice, I would be telling like 4 season stories. If because that's not a thing that happens too often anymore, then I've pivoted to features because I get to at least be like A to Z. This is what I wanted you to get, and you're gonna be able to see it.
Yeah, no, and I mean just the fact again, right? Like I am hearing a lot of I get to tell a story, right? Like
Mhm.
which at the end of the day isn't that what, telling a story and being creative,
Yeah,
like I don't know, I always say we're lucky to do I've never been in a writer's room, but like whether it's a poster, whether it's like writing, to me I'm like I'm getting to be creative, right? Like we're
right.
we're in a world that it's very not helpful. But can you tell me more about, I'm just so curious, what exactly, do you do in the world of gaming as a writer? Do you write stories? This is like I gaming 101 for me, and you don't have to go into all the details, but
No,
like
so here's the
what?
thing. I got an email one day
Uh-huh.
and they were like, "Hey, we're from the BioShock team." It was like 4 years ago. I was with this team. I stopped working with them at the end of 2025. But I just got an email one day. I think it was like 2020, 2021, and they were like, "Hey, we would love to meet you. We're the BioShock 4 team and we're looking for a writer." And I very honestly replied back and I was like, guys, I've never held a video game control in my life. never played a minute of video game. I don't know what I'm like. This is not my world. And they were like, don't worry, we have enough video game nerds here. We've heard you're a fantastic like world builder, and that's what we need right now because it's like a sci-fi game. It's like a very intense situation. Um, and I met with them, and that's sort of like what they brought me in for. I was my two titles were cultural consultant and then writer. So I was there from the very beginning of, again, I will clarify, there was a complete reorganizing of the structure, internal structure, and reimagining of the game. I have no idea if the game that we worked for 4 years on is the game that's going to be released because they literally shifted the entire creative team at the end of 2025. But at the time, I was a cultural consultant and I helped build everything. Like, I had meetings with the visual team and we were looking at what are these rooms look like and what are the things in the walls in these rooms like to fit these characters. I was helping create character bios. I was helping create backstories and like what music are we hearing during the video game. So that was sort of like the cultural consultant part of the thing. And then on the writers, so I was on a freelance basis, so my contracts were all hourly based. So every so often there'd be like, we're gonna give you like a 200-hour contract. And then once that they'd be like reassessed and be like the next stage of the work it's gonna be this, and now we need you for like 150 hours. Um, so that's when I would be like taking meetings and looking over bios, and I would get scripts that the full-time writers would work in their own version of a writer's room and then revise them, basically rewrite them and be like, this character wouldn't say this for this reason. And sometimes they would also just like send me outlines and be like, write this scene. And then they would go and do it a pass and then pass it back to me. So I wasn't on a daily basis on the writer's room because they did have full-time staff for that. But I was, taking meetings from everyone from the narrative director and the like head, basically the showrunner of the video game to, again, costume and music. And like I did playthroughs and I was like, that doesn't look right or whatever. But it was like looking at it through a very specific cultural lens, which is what they hired me for.
But that's again, I love the fact that I don't know, limitations, what are those? Like
Right.
I don't, you're being asked to you're being tapped for your creativity and like that might look different, right? Like and for every creative.
Yeah, and I will say be honest about what your limitations are because I very openly, from the beginning, from literally my response to their first email was, I know nothing about video games. And that meant that throughout the process, they would throw terms that I would literally not understand. So when I raised my hand and was like, what does LT1 or whatever, like shortcut, like, shorthand that they use within each other, what does that mean? They'd be like, all right, Chris doesn't know. And then they'd be very patient with me and explain the whole thing and do whatever. But it's because I told them. I was up for what is now a released, very popular game, but I interviewed and I got pretty far into the interview process. And again, I'm not a Marvel person. I don't do graphic novels, superheroes, not my thing. But I got in and it was a Marvel show. And I met with the showrunner and I met with the like what writer, the head writer at the time and the executive. And one of the first things that I said was like, love the property, read all the materials that you sent. Know that I am not. I'm not going to be the encyclopedic knowledge of graphic novels in that room. If I come in, it'll be they had a queer character. I was like, if I come in, I'm probably going to come in as like the queer woman voice in the room, whatever, whatever. I'm not going to be the person who's going to be like in issue 57 of Spider-Man 3 universe, whatever. This is what happened. Like, that's not going to be me. And again, they were like, don't worry about it. It's Marvel. We have people in the room who know Marvel inside out. So I think I've always been very honest for whatever job it is that I go up for, what my limitations are and what my knowledge is, and whether that stops me from getting a job or not, who knows? But I know people are like, fake it till you make it. I think there's things you cannot fake.
You should and I think I don't know, I in my experience people appreciate the honesty, right? And like I don't know, like if it was meant for you, you're gonna try for it, and
Right.
if it doesn't land on you, well, it reminds.
Right.
I had an experience a couple of years ago with the Angel City football team here, the
Mm-hmm.
soccer team. They hit me
Yeah.
up to do like a collaboration with Cumbiaton or Party, and I
Yeah.
was like an illustration. And I was like, I freaked out because I was like. I don't know anything about soccer. My mom used to make me play soccer when I was little, and I hated it. And but I was honest, and they loved it. They're like,
Yeah.
Julio, it doesn't matter. We're not hitting you up to like go play with
Yeah.
girls. Like, we're hitting you up because we
Yeah.
love you like you are, right? And so being honest, like people appreciate, and I don't know that it's just it creates the working relationship. It goes, I
Yeah.
don't know, transparent. Transparency is key. I don't know for this.
Yeah, and I think there's, not to spread the thing again, but going back to the fake it till you make it. Once you're in the room with like the final interview with the showrunner and the exec or whatever, you don't want to be the person who like, yeah, I know Marvel inside out, and then they hire you in the room and they start quoting things and they turn to you and ask you for something, and then you look like an idiot in the room because you actually didn't know it. I think once you're at the spot where it's like this job is either yours or it isn't, put it all on the table because I don't think you want to be the person who like got in the room and then you got fired out of the room or whatever it is because you weren't actually who you painted yourself to be.
There you go. Here, you heard it here. Like, yes, we believe in the spirit of faking it until you're making it, but there are limitations to that because, yeah, you
Yeah.
don't want to be that girl. Like, it's
Yeah,
like
literally.
you said.
You said you
Now,
were the number one fan. I was like, "Mm,
listen, again, as artists, as creatives, we bring a lot of our personal, right? I don't know, for me, it's been a way to speak up when, there needs to, we need to speak up. I just got my green card, and I was with you when I got that
Yeah.
email from my lawyer. We were together, we were out there supporting Monica Lucas and the Inevitable Foundation, event. And, like this thing that I didn't have for 30 years, right?
Yeah.
Um, you, as someone who, was undocumented for 30 years, I feel like the experience will forever, inform my art in one way or another. You experience being undocumented, in this country. How does that experience continue to shape, your writing?
Oh my God. I think I try to, so I sold the show to a studio at one point. I primarily write genre. That's my niche. People are like, don't pigeonhole yourself. And I'm like, no, please pigeonhole myself. Pigeonhole me. Um, that show started off as what seemed like a ghost show. And my point with it was we're gonna bring the ghost back to life at the end of season one and in season two, because again, I plan out all my seasons. Um, we were gonna bring the ghost back to life. And to me, that was like, well, all of a sudden, this person from the 1800s is alive in 2024, 2025, whatever it is, they're going to start to live the undocumented experience because they don't have a birth certificate or a social security number or whatever it is. So even through sort of my genre lens, I always find a way to like end there somewhere and to educate people in answering the question of like, but why didn't they just get a green card? Because it's not that easy, and there's no magic number or form that you can fill out to do it. So through still the comedy of the show and the ghost world and whatever it is, all these like fantastical elements, there was still going to be a kernel of truth to the story, and I wasn't going to do it through like, the trauma porn perspective, and I wasn't going to do it. One thing that was also very important to me, it was like this particular character, like her partner, the queer, like the main lead who was alive from the beginning of the show. She was like a first generation Dominican immigrant, all these things. But the person that the ghost that she fell in love with was a tradition, like conventionally attractive white woman from the 1800s who was wealthy and did all these things, and like all of a sudden she's brought back to life and she's in a very different condition. So it's like you weren't going to see the brown person or the person of color going through this, which is like very stereotypical. And I think something stories that don't get told often is like, yeah, you always see ICE carrying the African immigrant or the Latino immigrant or the Asian immigrant, but what about the Irish undocumented people? What about the Slavic undocumented people? They don't get, because they don't get racially profiled as much. So we don't ever get to see those stories told through those different perspectives. And I think to me, it's important to also put those people in these shoes so people can imagine that an undocumented immigrant can look like something else besides you and me and, the person from Korea or wherever it is. Like undocumented immigrants come in all shades and colors, but only people that look like us get brutalized on the streets.
Yeah, and like also the fact that again, it's not. it's not just like a US thing, it's like a global thing, right? But we're our experience, it's definitely gonna get inserted in one way or another. And so I do you ever feel, you mentioned this sort of kind of not doing this stereotypical thing, but whenever you approach the issue of immigration or your immigrant experience, do you feel like the pressure to get it right? Like I'm kind of getting tired of trying to do immigration 101 work, but
Hmm.
like what is your take on that? Like, oh, I'm representing for all the immigrants. And like if you get even deeper, like the Dominican experience, like
Right.
like what kind of
Right.
pressure?
I think, again, as someone who tends to write either first generation immigrants or outright immigrants like myself, people who speak ESL, people who are Dominican, Afro-Latinas, queer Black women, queer Latina women. For a very long time, like you said, I felt a lot of pressure to get it right. And what I've discovered now is that I can't put all the onus on myself.
Mhm.
Because my hope is that I do a good enough job in telling the authentic story that I want to tell, whether everyone interprets it as the right story to tell in the right way or not. I strive to do the best that I can in the most authentic and original and truthful way that I can so that it can open doors for other people who look like me and they also get to tell their stories in whatever way they see fit. So I no longer see myself as the one and the savior. Like, I'm not the Matrix dude. I'm not the savior. Like, it's not just gonna be me. I'm hoping that I get the opportunity and I do a good enough job, and that means that 50 are behind me getting to tell their stories. So I've kind of like taken that pressure off myself of being like, you're the Afro Latina who has to tell stories. I'm like, no, I might be the first one, but I can open doors for 100 others to tell Afro Latina that from a Cuban perspective or from a, Mexican perspective or from whatever it is. And they can kind of like put their own spin on it and write their on ghost story or their own sci-fi or whatever it is. I'm just worried about telling the one that I want to tell in the most authentic way possible.
Boom. I mean, can we just create? Can we
Exactly.
focus on the
Exactly.
actual creative part without having, to carry that. And I don't know, yeah, it's I go back and forth often, right? Like I'm like, I should be, because if we don't tell those stories, like somebody else is gonna, the way that it's been happening through the history of TV and
Hmm.
film, right? Like
Hmm.
somebody who doesn't come from our experiences then creates
Right.
a caricature or
Right.
whatever. But
And I will
but
say it's not to negate the truth of how the industry sees us because I very recently, within the last couple of weeks, was involved in a conversation where an executive was very honest and said, we had developed the show for a really long time. It had a Latino lead. It wasn't even a Latino show. It had one of the main leads was Latino. They had cast attached. It was packaged. They did everything that everyone tells you to do. And then they eventually went to the studio, and the studio, the person above them, their boss, was basically like, you can't take this out. And after a lot of back and forth of her, like, really trying to find out why their bosses were like, you can't take this out, he very honestly said, well, we already have a Latino show. And we're like, okay, but he just happens to be Latino. It's not the Latino show. It's not like George Lopez. Like, it's not that thing. You know what I mean? Um, And then they went, like her and the creative team had an opportunity to pitch the show to a buyer. It came up in a meeting, and those people bought it. And she had to go back and tell her boss and be like, I'm sorry, we sold it. What are we gonna do now? But it is very true that even if we don't see ourselves as the one, everyone above us and the buyers and the streamers or the whatever, they do only make room for one. So there's a difference between what we want and what the reality is.
yeah, I mean, do we learn nothing from history, And I get it, it's the business of show, right? But it's just, I don't know, it reminds me of like in the 90s when I was listening to this like history of like women in music, and there was a time in the 90s where like you couldn't play, Courtney Love and like Shirley Manson and Gwen
Right.
Stefani in the same hour because like that's too much. And like I'm
Yeah.
like, those people made a lot of money, like a lot of money. What they made people a lot of money. I'm like, we make money, but I don't know. It's what it is. But going back to kind of what you originally said, right? Like we are in a different time and things are shifting. And listen, the system was not made for us, and we're making our own stuff. In an ever-changing world of how
Hmm.
audiences consume media, which can be challenging, as we've been talking about it for audiences, for creatives like us. What keeps you motivated to create?
Finding my audience.
Mm,
Finding the audience that is invested and that wants to watch what I want to make. I will be honest, I'm very concerned about this whole vertical nonsense. And it's not because of the medium, it's not that like we can talk about quality all day long. I think that's a
yeah,
different thing. I think there's people who are trying to do good things within the vertical space. My worry is that in a world that's already plagued by a very short attention span, verticals are training audiences to expect a cliffhanger and a turn and a whatever every minute at the end of this, like every episode. Like you literally get a cliffhanger or a turn or a gasp every like 60 to 90 seconds because they want you to watch the next one and they want you to pay for the next one. And I'm very concerned to what that's doing. And you're already starting to hear people be like, well, I watch shows on 2x. Or I skip scenes because they're boring, or there was like too much dialogue, or not enough was happening, or I like don't read descriptions in books. So I'm very worried about what it is doing to the mass audience. So I'm becoming less and less concerned in making like $100 billion movie. I'd so much rather make a movie that makes $1 million. But that was my audience. And those were the people who wanted to see the movie in the way that I wanted to tell it and did in 2x through the slow scene and didn't think, oh, that scene was unnecessary or didn't XYZ. And I think the same thing with my shows. Like if I'm writing 10 episodes of TV, trust and believe that every scene that I put in there matters and that nothing was superfluous and that nothing was a waste of time or that nothing was too slow. So I think I've become a lot less concerned in being like mass appealing, but instead being appealing to my masses, the ones that I want to hit.
exactly. Like take and it's the people that have been following your work and who have been supporting your work, right? Like those are the people that we create for. Like those are the
Right.
people that I'm like, you've been there from day one. So, there's this idea of like there's something better over there. And I'm like, oh,
Mhm.
is there? Like,
Right.
what? Maybe, yeah, it'd be nice to get like all kinds of big money, but I don't know.
Right.
In a world of like, being, too many billionaires in this world that is like, that are fucking up our world. Like, it's
Yeah.
that or the soul of creativity. So for
Right.
people who might be feeling a little like, I don't know, and I ask this question also being aware that, because we just put out the Disruptors application and like
Right.
so many people have been sharing it, so many people are like interested and but they're going into an industry that is changing for people who might be like, I don't know, I don't want to continue this journey because it just seems like it's useless. Do you have any advice for those folks who might be losing hope in the creative world as technology's taking over and the way that we watch content changes?
I mean, to be honest, I don't know that I can give anyone advice that I wouldn't take myself.
Mm,
I went to film school. I knew that I wanted to be a filmmaker when I was 5 years old. I knew that I wanted to go to Emerson by the time that I was 13. It was the only school that I applied to. Like, this is literally the only thing that I've ever done. For better or worse, I've been talking to people recently. Like, again, the economy and the things that are happening, we're in a very complicated world. And other people have survival jobs, which is very fair, and I respect that. Everyone has rent to pay and everyone has bills to pay. For better or worse, I've never had to work retail. I've never had to work at a restaurant. I've never had to do anything else. So now I find myself in my late 30s with the world crumbling around me, and I have no backup plan. I have no other skill set. So I'm like, the ship is sinking, I'm going down with it because I literally have no other choice. So I don't know that I have advice that couldn't give myself because like to me it's like, well, we're gonna figure it out because we don't really have a choice, and that's sort of like my motto right now.
And, and that is exactly the thing, right? Like I think. I don't know. Same. I can't, when people tell me, "Oh, I just don't feel like creating because I have a writer's block," or I'm like, I can relate to that. Like I can't like whenever shit is going down, I need to create. Whether it's like writing something, like the act of creating, it's what has kept me sane,
Yeah.
ish,
Ish.
throughout
Ish.
this whole time. And so I 100% agree with you, right? Like as long as I don't know, I'm sorry, I don't know if this is a hot take, but I'm like, if you quit because of what's happening and because you cannot make money out of it, maybe that was not that you're not really passionate about. I don't know. Is that a
Right.
hot take?
I don't, here's the thing. I understand people have to live. We
Right.
all have
Yes.
bills
Yes.
and that's we live in a capitalistic society, whether we
Yes.
want to or not. We need money.
Yeah.
But I have seen people persevere through the lack of money. And I think I won't say that we're better than the people who quit. I think there might just be 5% more passion that keeps us around
Mhm.
and keeps us committed to the craft. And maybe we're stubborn and maybe we're delusional and maybe we're the idiots who didn't, get a real estate license. Love realtors, don't get me wrong. But
Yes.
like, maybe I'm just like, maybe I don't have a backup plan because I don't want to have a backup plan. And it's easy to be able to say, well, I don't know how to do anything else. But
Mhm.
in my case, it's the truth. And I have to figure it out within the reality of my limitations in terms of skill sets, which is like I can't walk into a restaurant and be like, I will carry 5 plates of hot food and deliver it to the table in a I'm like I don't know how to do that. So it's like I know what my limitations are, and my limitations are, for better or worse, being a creator. And that's what I'm gonna keep on doing until it takes me down with it.
We pick the creative life. Chris, we're coming to an end of our
Uh,
beautiful conversation. I can talk to you all day. Is there anything that you're working on right now that you can share? I know maybe there's some things that you might want to keep under wraps, but is there something that you can share?
I'm I recently switched agencies. I was with CA for a while, and then I very recently, in the last few months, went to Verve. And my new team over there, they all specialize in genre. I'm very, very excited to be working with them and to have them steer my career, this new stage of my career. We are working on a couple of new things, and we're just taking out a feature that I literally finished writing, I think like last week.
Oh,
So it's a bit of a monster horror. That's what I love to do. But I always come at it from a social commentary type of work. Like my feature that was on the blacklist the last year, that was also a monster horror, but at its core, it was like a commentary on the prison industrial complex and everything that happens with people after they leave that system and what options they have and how they're stuck in this world. So this one is very much about climate change, and it's a monster that's like a situation. These people are put in a situation because of a very bad hurricane, climate change, blah blah blah. So it's like there's always going to be like immigration, climate change, mental health, whatever it is. Like sure, on the surface, it's going to look like oh, just another like monster creature, but at its core, it's going to be something completely different. So I'm trying to tackle climate change this year.
listen, it's a must. It's our duty as artists, right, to reflect the times. Chris, thank you so much. Before we close, I want to remind our audiences, if you're planning to apply for the mentorship program, tell
Apply,
them, Chris, apply, apply,
apply,
apply.
apply, apply.
Yes, the application is out right now. It's due on June 5th. We will not have extensions this year, so please make sure to apply. The fellows will be chosen mid-July, and then we will be kicking off the fellowship, the mentorship program on August 10th. For the workshops, again, I want to make that difference. There's the mentorship program. We only have space for 9 fellows this year. And then we have the workshops. The workshops will be open for anyone. You don't have to be in LA. You do have to RSVP when the link comes out. And by the time this comes out, it's probably going to be out. It is going to close on May 29. We have limited space, so make sure to sign up for those workshops. The first workshop will be on June 10th. So, Chris, That's our updates. Any last words? And where can people find you? Where can, if people want to find you after this, where can they?
My Instagram is probably what I'm most active on and where I'm always announcing things. And that's just my name. It's just Kryzz Gautier. Yeah, I think I would say Disruptors. I've done all of the fellowships, writing and directing at this point. Disruptors is one of the ones that I remember the most fondly, and it was because of the people that I took away from it. Obviously, the experience, but I think what I take the most out of all these labs and fellowships is always the community. That's the people that you're coming up with. That's going to be the next generation, and those who you're going to have to become friends with. So apply and find your folks and make things with them and stay in contact with them and turn them into your community and your crew and your writers group and all the things.
Exactly. Oh, couldn't say better myself. Thank you so much, Chris. If you made it to the end of this video, we want to thank you so much. If you have any questions about all the information that we shared today, specifically about the applications, please don't hesitate to email me. I'm really good at responding back, julio@culturalpower.org. Please share this video with everyone and subscribe to our Center for Cultural Power YouTube page at the Culture Strike to see this and other videos from our organization. Thank you, Chris, and
Thank you.
greeting. Thank you so much. Adios.
Bye.